works 2 political jobs on 2 public payrolls. As mayor of South Suburban Dalton, or as she calls herself, Super Mayor.
Don Scott, the meeting wrapped up early because 2 trustees, as you mentioned, did not show up. Chris Gonzalez and Carmen Carlisle. Without them, not enough board members were present.
Tiffany Henyard, the controversial mayor of Dalton, Illinois, has become one of the most polarizing political figures in the region. Her leadership, marked by eviction disputes and corruption allegations, has sparked division in the small communities she governs. Critics accuse Henyard of prioritizing personal gain over the welfare of the town, while her supporters argue that her efforts, though flawed, were well-intentioned. The FBI's recent involvement in an investigation into her alleged corruption has deepened the controversy surrounding her tenure. This federal probe, which has stunned locals, could reveal even more troubling details about Henyard's financial dealings and governance. As the investigation unfolds, residents are left to question the integrity of their leadership and the future of their town. The growing scandal has intensified the rift between those who see Henyard as a figurehead of deeper systemic issues and those who view her as a victim of broader political turmoil. With Dalton already struggling with economic and social challenges, the fallout from the allegations threatens to further destabilize the community. For many, Henyard's name now symbolizes betrayal, while others view her as a scapegoat for the town's larger problems, leaving Dalton in a state of uncertainty.
They may turn up more witnesses, they may find a cooperator, they may find an informant, all which will benefit the investigation tremendously.
But based on what we know now, if you're Tiffany Henyard, how are you feeling?
The most startling revelation in the ongoing controversy surrounding Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard, often called the Super Mayor, is the shocking allegation that she embezzled millions of dollars in public funds. According to the FBI's investigation, a meticulously orchestrated scheme has been uncovered in which Henyard allegedly siphoned taxpayer money into private accounts while making unauthorized purchases. Sources familiar with the inquiry suggest that the misappropriated funds could total nearly $2 million. An astounding figure for Dalton, a financially struggling village for residents already disillusioned by years of questionable leadership. The scale of the alleged theft is a deep betrayal. One anonymous official described the situation as not just poor financial oversight, but outright theft, further eroding public confidence and trust in Henyard's administration. These allegations come amid rising concerns about Dalton's already precarious finances. Critics have long accused Henyard of reckless spending, but the claim that she deliberately diverted public funds for personal gain has shifted the narrative dramatically earlier this year. A financial report revealed a sharp decline in Dalton's general fund, which went from a $5 million surplus in 2022 to a $4 million deficit by mid-2024. This financial deterioration has fueled suspicions of mismanagement and corruption. Now, residents who were previously frustrated with Henyard's leadership have transitioned to outrage, demanding accountability and immediate action. At a public forum, one community member passionately expressed that Henyard should focus on fixing the town's streets, not lining her own pockets. This sentiment resonates with many Dalton residents who are now calling for Henyard's resignation, referring to her tenure as the Henyard era of corruption. As public outrage intensifies, the community is united in its demand for transparency and justice. With trust in local government severely eroded, Dalton faces the difficult challenge of reconciling with a leader whose alleged actions have only worsened the town's financial struggles. Whether Henyard's administration can survive the weight of these allegations is uncertain, but the demand for an end to what many see as a gross abuse of power is undeniable.
The information today, we have the best mayor ever. I've been here since 1993. And she's the best we ever had.
You know, you're doing a lot of programs, good programs for the senior citizen, and you're doing a lot of programs for, people who are on a fixed budget. But what about the people with the blue collar?
Mayor Tiffany Henyard's decision to run for re-election has sparked a fierce firestorm of criticism, with many residents viewing the announcement as poorly timed and a clear sign of troubling ignorance amid the mounting scandals surrounding her administration. Henyard, who has faced increasing scrutiny for allegations of embezzling millions in public funds, chose to seek a second term just as her credibility in the political sphere has reached its lowest point. In the midst of these ongoing controversies, her decision to campaign for re-election has struck many as tone-deaf, and some even labeled it as outright delusional at a highly contentious town hall meeting. Dalton residents voiced their disbelief and frustration, questioning how Henyard could seek votes while allegedly betraying the trust of the community through financial misconduct. The backlash was not just about the poor timing of her decision. It was a full-scale rejection of a mayor who many felt had failed the very town she had sworn to serve. Public anger only intensified as Henyard's personal financial issues came to light, further fueling doubts about her ability to lead the community effectively in addition to her dual roles as Dalton's mayor and Thoron Township supervisor, which come with a six-figure salary. Henyard found herself embroiled in a personal financial crisis. Court documents revealed that Henyard and her boyfriend, Sim Woods, had fallen behind on rent payments for their Dalton home, with the landlord, Janetta Hall, claiming the couple owed thousands of dollars in overdue rent and late fees. To make matters worse, Henyard and Woods allegedly changed the locks on the property, preventing Hall from accessing the home. Hall described the situation as a nightmare, especially given Henyard's substantial public salary, leading many residents to question how the mayor could be so financially irresponsible. The growing concerns over Henyard's personal financial instability were compounded by the potential threat of foreclosure on her property. This situation not only drew attention to her own financial struggles, but also struck a nerve with the residents of Dalton, many of whom are grappling with their own economic hardships. Henyard's failure to meet even the most basic financial obligations, such as paying rent, deepened the perception that her leadership was self-serving, focused more on personal gain than on fulfilling her duties. As a public official, Henyard's continued refusal to acknowledge the severity of both her personal and political financial mismanagement only served to further alienate her from the people of Dalton. Instead of recognizing the mounting pressure to take responsibility for her actions, Henyard's decision to run for re-election seemed more like a bid for power than a genuine desire to serve the community. With corruption, mismanagement, and financial irresponsibility continuing to dominate the narrative surrounding her tenure, her re-election campaign has only highlighted the growing rift between her and the residents who feel betrayed and abandoned by her leadership as public frustration escalated. The contrast between Henyard's ample salary and her failure to meet even the most basic responsibilities was glaring. The public began to view her re-election campaign not as an effort to improve Dalton, but as a self-serving endeavor driven by ego and a desire to hold on to power. This growing perception of Henyard as someone more interested in her personal gain than in the welfare of her constituents was underscored by the stark financial negligence that had defined much of her time in office. The anger and resentment towards Henyard reached new heights after the revelations of her alleged embezzlement and misuse of public funds. Early in the year, Henyard was embroiled in a scandal where she was accused of funneling millions of taxpayer dollars into private accounts for personal use. These allegations of corruption have already tainted her reputation beyond repair for many in Dalton. With the community already reeling from these accusations, the fact that Henyard would seek another term in office felt like a slap in the face to the residents who were already struggling with deteriorating infrastructure, underfunded schools, and a town plagued by financial mismanagement for many. Henyard's bid for re-election was a stark reminder that she had failed to address the very issues that had led to the town's decline. Instead of focusing on the urgent needs of Dalton, such as fixing the streets, improving public services, and ensuring financial stability, Henyard seemed intent on protecting her own political career. Her campaign, rather than offering a vision for the future of Dalton, became a symbol of the egotistical nature of her leadership and the disconnect between her priorities and the needs of the community. This disconnect between Henyard's actions and the reality faced by her constituents only deepened the sense of betrayal. Residents were left to grapple with a leader who, instead of stepping back and taking responsibility for her mistakes, seemed determined to cling to power at all costs. Calls for accountability and transparency grew louder, with many demanding that Henyard resign rather than continue to run for re-election. The tragedy of the situation lies in the stark contrast between the struggles of Dalton's residents and the behavior of their mayor. While the community faces immense challenges, economic instability, poor infrastructure, and a lack of basic services, Henyard's actions have made it clear that she is more concerned with preserving her political position than with addressing the needs of the people she was elected to serve. The result is a leadership that no longer reflects the hopes, desires, or needs of the community, but instead perpetuates the sense of frustration and disillusionment that has taken hold in Dalton as Henyard's re-election campaign progresses. It is becoming increasingly evident that her time in office may be remembered less for any tangible progress in Dalton and more for the self-interest and neglect that have defined her leadership. Whether she can weather the mounting pressure and continue her campaign remains to be seen, But it is clear that the public is demanding an end to what many view as an egregious abuse of power and an era of leadership that has failed the very people it was supposed to serve.
Everything as relates to with credit cards. As you heard me speak today in my board meeting, I did not handle that.
Some of those charges are for you, though.
No, sir.
You didn't go to Las Vegas?
The eviction scandal involving Mayor Tiffany Henyard has intensified criticism of her leadership, further fueling public outrage. Once considered a reliable figure, Henyard rented a house from Janetta Hall, a former friend, in 2021. Hall, who believed Henyard's significant income and influence, over $300,000 annually, made her a trustworthy tenant, had even terminated a previous lease to accommodate her. However, Henyard's actions quickly turned that trust into betrayal. Earlier this year, after Hall raised the rent by $2,200 due to rising property taxes, Henyard's boyfriend, Sim Woods, allegedly informed Hall that they could no longer afford the payments. Since then, Henyard and Woods stopped paying rent altogether, leaving Hall struggling to cover her own expenses. Hall expressed disbelief, stating that a public leader like Henyard should be setting an example, not neglecting financial responsibilities. Henyard's failure to pay rent has sparked widespread outrage in Dalton, where residents already disapprove of her administration's financial mismanagement and ongoing controversies. Many locals share Hall's frustration, feeling disillusioned with a mayor whose actions, they argue, reflect a complete disregard for fiscal responsibility. Henyard's tenure has been marked by reckless spending, with one of the most shocking revelations coming earlier this year, when it was discovered that the village credit card had been charged over $33,000 for Amazon purchases. The extravagant items, including luxury goods and ornamental decorations, were seen as completely unnecessary, drawing widespread condemnation. One trustee publicly criticized Henyard, accusing her of treating the village's funds like her personal piggy bank. This is just the latest in a series of financial missteps that have plagued her administration, which is already under fire for lavish taxpayer-funded parties, unnecessary expenditures, and a lack of transparency. These actions have only further strained her relationship with Dalton's residents, many of whom feel betrayed by a leader they once trusted. As the community grapples with rising economic challenges and financial instability, Henyard's irresponsible spending only deepens a sense of frustration and distrust. For many, her behavior epitomizes a leadership style completely disconnected from the realities faced by ordinary citizens, raising serious questions about her ability to govern effectively. Meanwhile, Hall's experience as Henyard's landlord has become a symbol of the broader issues plaguing her administration, a pattern of broken trust and financial irresponsibility that resonates with a community tired of unfulfilled promises and wasteful spending. As the number of grievances against Henyard grows, so too does the demand for accountability. Her supporters are dwindling, while critics increasingly highlight her priorities, pointing to her extravagant spending while basic needs like infrastructure repairs remain unmet. The scandal has become a tipping point for Dalton, with many residents now calling for Henyard's resignation. What was once seen as potential leadership has turned into a cautionary tale of misplaced trust and unfulfilled expectations. As her approval continues to crumble, the community is left to wonder what lies ahead in the wake of Henyard's controversial administration.
Yep, Ray and Micah. Thornton Township Supervisor Tiffany Henyard wanted the Board of Trustees to approve some events that she wants the township to pay for, but none of the trustees showed up for this special meeting tonight. That left the meeting canceled.
Tiffany Henyard's conduct over the past year has sparked significant controversy, with her behavior at public gatherings being just as divisive as her financial troubles. Her frequent altercations with Dalton trustees have made headlines, as town meetings regularly devolve into shouting matches and walkouts. These public confrontations have contributed to the growing perception of an administration in disarray, with Henyard's increasingly combative leadership style on full display. One of the most egregious incidents occurred when Henyard reportedly called the police on staff members who were removing banners bearing her image, following an order from the trustees. Her response was drastic and seemed overblown, as she demanded that the workers be arrested for theft of government property simply for carrying out the board's directive. Complicating matters, the vendor responsible for the banners claimed they were owed nearly $220,000 in unpaid bills, further fueling tensions. The banners had been put up without the board's approval, adding another layer of controversy to the situation. This event marked just one of many flashpoints that have defined Henyard's tenure, highlighting her increasingly contentious relationship with the local government. Another major controversy arose when Henyard appointed a new police chief without first obtaining approval from the board, igniting yet another battle for control of the town's leadership. When confronted by trustees, Henyard refused to back down and even publicly argued with officers on camera, demanding they press charges on her detractors if they felt it necessary. This heated situation was further complicated when it was revealed that the police chief she appointed was not legally qualified for the role, as the certification had been inactive according to state law enforcement records. Despite this clear legal violation, Henyard stood by her decision, disregarding the objections of the trustees and local law enforcement officials. The Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board took the rare step of writing directly to Henyard, urging her to remove the unqualified police chief. Yet, Henyard refused to comply, accusing the trustees of undermining her authority. This series of disputes and defiant actions has only deepened the sense of unrest within Dalton, with many now viewing Henyard's leadership as erratic and authoritarian. Instead of collaborating with the board and community, Henyard has opted to confront anyone who challenges her, further eroding public confidence in her leadership. Her relentless battles with trustees, including the controversial appointment of an unqualified police chief, have sparked legal disputes and underscored her strained relations with other town leaders. These incidents highlight her apparent disregard for legal protocols and her tendency to prioritize power struggles over effective governance. The result is a picture of a mayor who, rather than fostering unity and progress, seems determined to maintain control through coercion and confrontation, as the backlash from both the community and local officials continues to grow. Residents are increasingly calling for change and accountability. Many are urging Henyard to step aside, believing that Dalton needs a fresh start in order to move forward from what feels like a period of endless chaos and conflict under her leadership.
Tonight's meeting had a much different tone than what we've experienced previously at Dalton City Council meetings. Now, the room was full of Henyard supporters, and they wanted me to be sure to tell you that they applauded for her several times as she talked about the township being in a great place financially.
Tiffany Henyard's administration in Dalton has been marked by a series of political conflicts and ongoing controversies, creating a paralyzing environment where the town struggles to function effectively. Town meetings are frequently canceled due to a lack of quorum, and crucial decisions are repeatedly delayed, all thanks to the legal battles that have come to define her leadership. These power struggles have left Dalton in a state of near paralysis, as each issue appears to revolve entirely around Henyard and her actions. This has only increased frustration among the town's residents, who are already dealing with the consequences of her reckless spending as the town's infrastructure deteriorates and essential services continue to be neglected. The community, once hopeful for change, now finds itself overwhelmed by a never-ending cycle of conflict and gridlock. In the face of mounting criticism, Henyard's response has been to double down on her power, becoming more confrontational rather than addressing the town's needs. One of the most infamous moments of her leadership came during a 90-minute Facebook Live rant at a recent town hall. In the session, Henyard threatened to arrest individuals involved in opposing her leadership and accused political opponents of orchestrating a smear campaign against her, with the town streets crumbling and schools in desperate need of funding. Henyard's response to the growing concerns was not one of accountability, but defiance. She threatened legal action against those questioning her legitimacy, which only alarmed the public. One person remarked that Henyard had lost touch with reality, and the rant quickly went viral, becoming widely condemned as another example of her erratic behavior. Many saw the incident as proof that Henyard was using intimidation tactics to silence dissent, raising serious concerns about her ability to lead effectively despite the growing backlash. Henyard remained unshaken in her stance. During the same Facebook Live session, she asserted that she was simply defending herself against baseless allegations and claimed that the legal issues and negative press surrounding her were part of a politically motivated attack. She even compared herself to former U.S. President Donald Trump, stating that just as Trump overcame controversy, she too would win re-election in a landslide. Her unwavering confidence and deflection of accountability have only deepened her disconnection from the reality many Dalton residents face daily. Amidst all of this, federal agents have reportedly subpoenaed financial records from both Dalton and Thoron Township, as well as documents related to Henyard's personal spending. Although no charges have been filed yet, sources close to the investigation suggest it is only a matter of time before the allegations escalate further. Henyard continues to deny any wrongdoing, firmly asserting that she has done nothing wrong and that the investigations are simply part of a smear campaign. Her comparison to Trump further emphasizes her tendency to deflect blame and avoid taking responsibility for her actions. Henyard's refusal to acknowledge her mistakes and the growing divide between her public persona and the reality of Dalton's situation underscore increasing detachment from the community's needs. Despite her defiant posture, her relationship with Dalton residents has become increasingly strained. While she maintains a small but vocal base of supporters, many of whom show up at meetings and applaud her every claim about Dalton's financial health, this support does little to alter the overwhelming dissatisfaction felt by the majority of the town's population. The atmosphere surrounding Dalton City Council meetings has grown increasingly tense and polarized, with Henyard's loyalists defending her at every turn. Despite the ongoing investigations and allegations of corruption, however, this small group of supporters cannot alter the fact that Dalton is teetering on the edge of crisis, with public discontent rising to a boiling point. Residents are left unsure whether Henyard can or will ever return to a path of responsible governance, or whether the town is destined to remain mired in dysfunction and scandal. The administration's continued legal challenges, public outbursts, and refusal to take responsibility have left Dalton's future uncertain. Henyard's tenure, characterized by divisiveness and controversy, has left the community fractured, and many are now questioning whether their mayor will ever restore the trust that has been so deeply eroded in the end. Henyard's administration remains at a crossroads, with the growing sense of dissatisfaction from Dalton residents leaving the town's leadership hanging in the balance. Will the mayor shift gears and restore order, or will she continue to confront her critics in a manner that only deepens the community's frustration? For now, the future remains unclear.